Johannesburg's inner city buildings are a ticking time bomb. Another fire broke out in one of the buildings last week. Luckily, this time around, no one was harmed. Government has promised to tackle the issue of hijacked buildings. These buildings are overpopulated and do not have adequate electricity supply and water. Now, who should be really responsible to prevent this? And what's been done for the victims? I'm joined now by Mametlwe Sebei, President of the General Industry Workers Union of South Africa, GIWUSA. His organization is part of a campaign involving other groups in terms of protecting the inner city from such incidents. Mametlwe, good afternoon. Welcome to today. First up, just tell us more about this campaign very briefly. Who's involved and what are you seeking to achieve?
We have initiated this campaign to try and bring together trade unions, GIWUSA being one, our federation to be another, and it's our Gauteng Housing Crisis Committee, and the inner city residents represented and organized by Inner City Resource Center, Inner City Resident Federation, and quite a number of others who are united in organizing solidarity with the victims of the Marshalltown fire, demanding justice for them, but also working towards finding a sustainable solutions to the crisis of housing and homelessness in the inner cities, but also in urban centers across the country.
So what is your plan of action? Let's just start with Joburg, because in a few weeks it has suffered two major fires. Thankfully, the last week's one, nobody was hurt, but we lost 77 people in the other fire downtown Marshalltown.
In the meeting that we had, the resolution that was taken was that there's going to be a need to engage with the city of Johannesburg. So far, the response of the politicians of the city of Johannesburg officials has been to bash the victim, to blame the poor, and to scapegoat NGOs and other civics that have been trying to work with the poor in the inner city around the issues of housing, homelessness, and all of that. Instead of addressing the problem and the crisis in the city is the fact that the city has abdicated responsibility towards most of the inner city building and the residents in them. They are not providing any services. They are not ensuring that there is health and safety in those buildings. And I think we are saying that they step up, right? And we are that has been appointed to deal with these issues. We prepare to make submission to that commission, but we are saying that we're not just going to wait and hope for the best. We are organizing a mass action. There is a plan and a talk and discussion of a march to the city. We are contemplating the date of the 1st of October, and we are saying that also, if that march does not succeed, we are planning a citywide shutdown to say the problem of housing, the problem of unsafe building, the problem of homelessness need to be attended as of yesterday.
Is this the same plan of action, same approach you're going to adopt for the rest of the country? You said your campaign is not just going to be confined to Johannesburg, but it's a nationwide campaign.
When we convened the meeting on Saturday, the mass meeting, which brought together over 300 representatives of trade unions, community civics, inner city residents, we had in mind of Johannesburg-wide campaign, but we received delegation of activists involved in housing crisis in the city of Cape Town. We've also been in discussion with Abahlali Basemjondolo, who you know are organized primarily in Durban, but also here in Johannesburg, and they are saying that they are facing the same crisis in Durban. And that is the reason that we are having a coordinating committee meeting tomorrow, and part of the discussions would be, do we want to have a Johannesburg-wide campaign only, or do we want to expand it nationally? The feeling is that it must be national, but of course, the action that we have most immediately on the agenda is the action confined to Joburg. We are looking, as I've said, on the date of the 1st of October, on the citywide shutdown if our demands are not met. However, if our comrades in Cape Town, in Durban, in Tshwane, and other metropolitan areas in particular are saying that they are prepared and ready to join because they are faced with the same crisis, will obviously be more than prepared to escalate it to that level.
Okay, let's come back to Joburg. The view, as you coalesce as more than 300 groupings, including trade unions like yourselves, who are you asking to take accountability for what's happening in Johannesburg?
All levels of government. Obviously, the most immediate target will be the city of Johannesburg. Why? Because we have the problem here of buildings that the city have absorbed itself of responsibility, and by abdicating and abandoning this building, they've left the poor at the mercy of criminal syndicates that have hijacked these buildings, and they are extorting the poor of the money in rentals over property and the land that they do not own, in tariffs over services that they do not provide. And we say that the city cannot allow this situation to go unchallenged. The city must reclaim these buildings, and of course, it must refurbish them and place them under a democratic control of the resident committees to ensure that they collect renta, to ensure that they collect, tariffs for the maintenance and sustenance of these particular buildings, as well as care, to ensure a dignified conditions of living within these particular buildings, right? That's the first thing. Secondly, we also say that there is a crisis of housing generally in the city of Johannesburg. When you look at the figures, the city population increased by 130,000 to 150,000 a year. We have a housing backlog of 500,000. On a yearly basis, the city built only about 2,500 houses. Now, when you take the housing backlog of 500,000, which I believe is a gross understatement of the crisis in the first place, but when you just take and accept that figure as government gives it, it means that the rate at which the city of Johannesburg is building public housing, it will take us 200 years just to overcome that particular crisis. We can't accept that. We need a city that is hospitable, that is welcoming to the poor people who are forced from the whole of rural South Africa and indeed beyond, who are coming here to look for economic opportunities in the form of jobs, but also services that are simply non-existent in rural areas. And this includes access to education, access to health, and all of that. In areas like Limpopo, where I come from, in areas like, Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga, and all of that, we need to be able to address that. Alongside, obviously, coming with a sustainable strategy for development of rural South Africa and beyond, right? And
Thank you very much.
We place the economic wealth of this country to resolving those issues.
Thank you very much, Mametlwe Sebei, the president of GIWUSA, that's the General Industry Workers Union of South Africa, part of a campaign which could culminate on the 1st of October in a citywide shutdown of Johannesburg following these fires. They are pushing for answers and solutions. Shortly